My name is Daniel Carter. I have always been skeptical about the paranormal. I've always been a logical person, someone who looks for explanations rather than superstitions. I work as a travel photographer, drawn to abandoned places and historical sites not for their so-called hauntings, but for the atmosphere. The stories carved into the walls, ghost stories are just that. Stories, twisted over time to scare people and sell tours. That's what I thought when I arrived at Port Arthur. I was on a solo trip, looking to document Australia's most infamous locations. The prison ruins were haunting in their own way, but I wasn't expecting anything beyond cold stone and faded history. Then I stepped inside cell 4, and everything I believed about the world started to unravel. I never believed in ghosts. Even as I walked through the skeletal remains of Port Arthur's prison, listening to the tour guide's ghost stories, I shook my head at the absurdity of it all. Shadows, whispers, cold spots. There was always a logical explanation. But I was wrong, because some things don't need your belief to be real. It was my last night in Port Arthur. The tour had ended hours ago, and the other visitors had left for the evening. But I wasn't done. I had always been drawn to dark history. The stories of men driven mad in tiny stone cells, prisoners breaking under the weight of endless isolation. Port Arthur's underground punishment cells were the worst of them all. That's where I wanted to go. I slipped away from the main path and crept toward the solitary block. The heavy wooden door creaked as I pushed it open. My flashlight flickered in the darkness. The air inside was different, thicker, heavier, as if it had been untouched for centuries. I followed the hallway deeper underground, my footsteps muffled by the damp stone floor. The cells on either side were empty, just dark, hollow voids carved into the rock. Then, I saw it. Cell 4. I stopped. My heart pounded against my ribs. This was the one. The cell where they had locked a prisoner away in complete darkness, forgotten for days. He had screamed at first, cried, begged, but after a week, the guards heard only whispering, soft, frantic murmurs in the blackness. Then, silence. When they finally opened the door, they found him huddled in the corner, shaking, eyes wide with terror. He died hours later, his mind shattered. Some say he never left. I stepped forward. My breath came in shallow gasps. The cold hit me like a wall, not the natural chill of the underground, but a deeper, sickening cold that wrapped around my bones. I reached out, hesitated, then placed my hand on the stone doorway. And then, a moan. Low, guttural, right next to my ear. I stumbled back, spinning around, my flashlight beam shaking wildly across the corridor. Nothing. I swallowed hard. Just the wind, I told myself. Just my imagination. But then, from inside the cell, a whisper. "Let me out." I ran. I don't remember leaving the prison. I only remember the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. I drove back to my hotel, my hands shaking on the wheel. My body was ice cold, my skin damp with sweat. When I finally got inside my room, I locked the door, double-checked it, then sat on the bed, trying to convince myself that nothing had happened. Then I saw my reflection. The room had a small, dusty mirror above the dresser. At first, I barely noticed it until I glanced up. There was something wrong with the way I looked. My face was pale, yes, but my eyes, they weren't focused on the mirror. They were looking slightly to the left, as if I was staring at something just over my shoulder, something I couldn't see. I didn't move. My breath came out in slow, measured exhales. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then, in the mirror, behind me, a shape shifted in the corner. I spun around. Nothing. I was alone. But I wasn't, was I? I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. A soft, moaning sound. Sometimes distant, sometimes right beside the bed. At one point, the air turned so freezing cold that I could see my own breath, even though the heater was on. And then, Just before dawn, as I hovered between sleep and wakefulness, I felt it. The mattress shifted, like someone had sat down beside me, a weight pressing down. I couldn't breathe. Then, right against my ear, a whisper. "Let me out!" I screamed. The lamp crashed to the floor as I lunged out of bed, my heart hammering. My breath came in ragged gasps as I fumbled for the light switch, flipping it on. The room was empty. I left Port Arthur the next morning, convinced that whatever had happened, it was over. But it wasn't. For weeks I felt it, the sensation that I was being watched. I caught glimpses of shadows moving in my apartment when I was home alone. Sometimes at night, I'd wake up to soft moaning sounds outside my bedroom door. Then, the whispering began again. Always the same words. "Let me out!" I don't know what followed me from that prison. I don't know if it's still here, but sometimes when I'm alone in the dark, I swear I can hear something breathing beside me, waiting. And I know, deep down, I never left that cell.